Hey guys, this is Simon Sage. I'm here with David and Stefan from Mostly Competent. Tonight we're going to be talking about a few things in the gaming sphere. We're going to be talking about Dota. We're going to be talking about mech games, including Hawken and the upcoming, what was it called again, David? The new one?
Titanfall.
That's it. And what else did we have on the menu? There's one other thing.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll just.
You'll be talking about ARMA 3.
ARMA 3, of course.
ARMA 3. I've been playing a lot of ARMA 3.
Yeah, you're pretty intense about ARMA 3. You're you're just showing us a clip there about nighttime gameplay. That looks pretty rough.
Well, it's only. I mean, the thing with ARMA is that I didn't really get involved in ARMA 2 at all, apart from playing DC, which is the mod, and I didn't realize what I was missing out on. Until I started testing out the ARMA 3 beta that's out right now. And that is, it's just out with very minimal content right now, and it's fantastic. So yeah, I've been putting in, I've probably got, I don't know, 80 hours in that now already.
Wow. You've had it, wait, how long? Like 2 weeks?
No, longer, right? I really hope.
Yeah, that's a lot of dedication.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I probably played a little bit every night, but not that much. Yeah, so it must be. It's definitely been longer than 2 weeks.
Let's hope so. Yeah. So let's see. I'm positive in the Skype conversation you had a quick rundown of the things we wanted to talk about here.
Well,
scroll up here.
I really want to talk about Dota. I mean, because
there's leap motion, right?
Pardon?
There's also leap motion.
Leap motion, yeah, you can talk a little bit about leap.
Oh, you go. Oh.
I have some questions about that.
Yeah. Okay. We can start with Dota though. That's cool.
It's pretty interesting because they just had the international 3, right?
Yep.
Almost 1 million viewers. Turns out. Sweden wins. Alliance.
Oh really? That's cool. Did you actually watch any of the competitions live or anything?
I watched some videos, yeah. I didn't watch it live.
Okay. So, I mean, we touched on this a little bit the last podcast, but, like, esports are still, like, socially a weird thing for me. Like, do I watch with friends? Why am I not spending my time just playing the game myself? Did you find it entertaining watching them at all?
I mean, I think, yes, it is. After I watched it, I went then and I started reading up on strategies in the game, and that made me realize that I would have appreciated the videos a lot more, obviously. And I think that's the case. Like, if you're going to watch these types of esports, you're not going to enjoy them unless you know the complexity of the strategy behind a game like Dota, who is arguably considerably much more complex than League of Legends.
Right.
And because they've added a bunch of different elements to the game to open up to like really complex strategies. And I think if you know that, if you understand those, then you'll be able to enjoy it a lot more. As far as it goes now, there's a lot of stuff happening on screen, and you're not really sure what's going on.
It seems to be, to me, like that side of things seems a bit like watching chess, right? And that's one of the reasons why chess kind of went televised chess anyway kind of went by the way, because you have to understand so much about the game to appreciate the nuances of the strategy of play. It's basically things like terrain objectives and things like that that you don't. It makes it quite inaccessible, I think, for the typical audience. Whereas like an FPS is a little easier to understand. It's a little more action driven, especially for the US audiences, where you have to keep scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were talking a little bit about this, David, when we were first trying to figure out what kind of content we wanted to do for this site, and in terms of like taking these big events and figuring out how would we distill it for a more general audience. Do we have to do that by playing the game at a professional level ourselves? Can we just read up on a lot of guides? Do we watch a lot of gameplay videos? That seems in and of itself a challenge, and I'm thinking it's probably going to be a mix, right? On the one hand, you can't really get that like pro tier commentary on this kind of stuff without having played the game at least a little bit yourself. But on the flip side, you can't just go and screw around and play. You've actually got to read up and watch replays from pro games in order to kind of integrate it yourself and really know what it is that's going on.
Yeah, I think it's like having a healthy appreciation for the sports, isn't it? You have to. I think David once said, you don't have to be a pro player to be able to talk about it, but I think you have to have played a little bit so you understand what makes a great move and what's truly a skillful thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Possibly. I think when it comes to games like these, I think you should play it, but I think you can absolutely be an expert commentator on the game without ever having put a foot in the game, a virtual foot in the game, so to speak.
Oh, that's a tall one. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly understand spending more time watching replays and doing research than playing the game, but having never played the game and making like some pretty educated commentary on what's going on, like it seems like in order to understand the dynamics of the game, the best way to do it is to just get in there.
Possibly, but you have this challenge, right? And this is going to be the case with eSport moving forward. So eSport is going to become big, and just like with football or soccer in Europe and with many other sports, like there aren't thousands of commentators. There are a few big commentators, and they haven't obviously played all the sports that they commentate on. And I think that's going to be
the same. But they have a deep knowledge of.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the deep knowledge is not probably going to come. There's going to be pro players that move from being pro players to being commentators in the future. And right now, at this stage, it's more likely that it's going to be someone who's been playing the game for a while, maybe didn't reach pro status, who is going to move into a commentating position and have a knack for that. But we're still. This is just we're seeing now pretty much the first generation of pro commentators within the eSport arena, and I think that when it comes to games like these, they're just going to become more and more complex. I'm kind of saying that you don't have to play them just for argument's sake. And my point is that you playing the game is not going to add that much to your It's not going to add even close to the amount of knowledge that is required for you to commentate on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is so much homework that you have to do in order to be able to commentate. I've tried listening to a few eSport replays, and it's like, wow, these guys have to know like not just like sheer game mechanics, but also like history and context about the particular players. They have to know about other games that have been launched, before. The difference between League of Legends and Dota 2. I don't really know it. It's not something I've really looked into, but if you're going to be a commentator, that's something that you're going to have to research. Yeah. So there's a ton of homework, and I certainly agree that the lion's share of preparing to do eSport commentating would be more scholarly, as you put it. When we were talking about it, and you made the analogy to being like a video game scholar. It's very academic, and I think that's an interesting idea. And I think that's probably the best angle to go about it.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, I think that when it comes to an FPS or a similar type of game, and that might not be required, right? But when it comes to a game like this, where you have these layers of strategy that, yes, they open up slowly as you play through the game, but you're never going to be able to explore each of the characters. Like, how many characters now in Dota?
Oh, like, it's a ridiculous number. There's over 100.
Yeah, and you play as, so, for staff, like, you play as one of those heroes, right? And they all have very different attributes. So people kind of tend to master maybe a few of those. Sure. I would probably ever hoping to master one of those, if even, right? If I was playing at the kind of time that I would be able to put into it. Then on top of that, you have the whole, each level starts your hero from scratch, right? So then part of this intense session that you're playing is grinding and leveling up your hero. And then as you're grinding and leveling him up, you're picking the path. So it's like a 45-minute version of the whole of World of Warcraft. You know what I mean? So you're picking your build as you're grinding, and it's very, very hectic. And then at the same time, you're purchasing new items, and combinations of certain items lead to you being able to morph them into more powerful items.
It's a giant tree.
It's just this insane tree that you need to understand for each of those characters. Like, it just expands and becomes almost, you know, I mean, it becomes incredibly hard to keep track of, and that's why these pro players are considered quite amazing at what they do, because they have to keep so many things in their head while they're playing, because they can't come to one game with one specific strategy. They probably have to have 10 different strategies ready and lined up that they can switch between when needed.
Yeah, no, it's I put a fair number of hours into it, and it's highly competitive even at amateur public game levels. If you get yourself killed 2 or 3 times, you're screwing your team over. It's not just that you're losing; it's that you're giving the other team gold with which to buy new equipment. They're getting a ton of XP, so they're leveling up before the rest of everybody else, and then they get new abilities, which just helps them kill more. It's a huge snowball effect. As soon as you give them a really small advantage, it grows very quickly into a bigger one, unless you could turn it around. So it's a really great game, and tons of flavor too, right? Like the models for all the characters are all really unique. They've got a nice range of like super badass skeleton warlord ones, and you've got like really cartoony gnomes and gyrocopters and stuff. It's a really nice mix. Great voice acting for all of it too. So yeah, no, tons of fun.
So I think you raise an interesting point there. Well, 2 things actually, and actually you're hitting on something that is the difference between League of Legends and Dota, which is that when you die in Dota, you lose gold. That is not the case in League of Legends, and that is a pretty major difference apparently in the game as you play, because that's why people get pissed off when you start dying, and actually dying is very costly. But it also means that for the other team, an efficient strategy is to keep stopping the other players from, basically killing the other players, which in League of Legends wasn't really the case, where the first 20 to 25 minutes were taken up by grinding effectively, on your own side. So now you have you can run a tactic whereby you attack much faster. So you have everything's based on this, or a lot is based on this gold system, and you also now in Dota have this ability to basically deny a kill for the other team. So you can kill your own little characters, the little critters that are part of your team that are computer controlled. You can kill them before the enemy kills them. So you deny them the kill, which would give them the gold. So you open up an incredible amount of strategies, right?
Yeah, lots of tiny micro games within the whole thing. There's also a big demon boss creature that you can get your whole team to gang up and gank. I mean, he's an NPC and he'll drop a really epic piece of gear, but it basically means that your whole team has to abandon tower defense on all of their lanes in order to focus on this. So,
it's a lot of coordination.
Yeah, absolutely, and it requires a lot of time. You got to know when the right time is that you can abandon the towers, and it's fine. You basically got to wipe out the opposing team before you can even do that. So, no, certainly a fun game. It's out free to play now on Steam. People should go play it because it's pretty awesome. Stefan, you need to play it at some point.
I know. I'm thinking in my head, like, how long is a typical session? Because in all these sorts of games where I have other team members, what keeps me playing, what I actually really hate, is when I want to go to bed.
Yeah.
I can't leave my squad, and I feel really bad.
Yeah, and that's certainly a thing. As soon as someone disconnects, it's like, oh well, I guess we lose. It's pretty bad. I think the average game is about 40 minutes or so. That's what it is for me. So a little on the longer side for sure, but.
That's okay. That's doable. I could do 1 session or 2 sessions.
There you go. Good. And like David was saying earlier, I basically just stick with the one character. I've dabbled into a second one now, but I didn't even bother really doing my homework for it too. I really should find one that suits my playstyle, but I just went with one that looked cool, and it's like, yeah, okay, I could die as this guy over and over and over again and still be enthusiastic about playing. Like if I was playing as some pixie fairy, that's like technically the best guy for new people to play as, I would get fed up with it. You know, I wouldn't care. It's like, no, stupid fairy, I hate you.
I can't play as that.
No, exactly. No, the guy I play is Clinks. He's a skeleton archer, and his style is really interesting. It's very hit and run. So he's a bit of a glass cannon, so that very squishy, dies quickly, but he has this ability where he can go invisible and run really fast. So that's my oh shit button. It's just like hit E and book it.
No, I like that kind of stuff. That's me in Dishonored.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
How do you think this works, though? Like, why do you think a game like this has captured eSport in the U.S. so well?
I think a big part of it is just the lineage, right? You take a look at, where Warcraft 3 came from. You know, StarCraft kind of known for esports originally, and I imagine that you probably had a lot of overlap between pro players that would be playing StarCraft and those that are playing Warcraft. If they're playing Warcraft 3, they're probably playing the original Dota there, which then matured into League of Legends and just kind of grew in fan base that way. So I think it's just the kind of long storied history that led up to Dota 2 being so high profile now. You know, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was basically just agreeing with you. But I find it interesting because also I read I watched another video piece on this, and I can't remember. We'll have to try and give attribution to it somewhere else. But there's something to be said about the battlefield and about being able to, as a spectator, being able to see the whole battlefield. Like, we look at our most popular sports today on TV, American football, like you can see, or baseball even, like you can see the whole game field, you can see all the players. And his point in the article or the video was that, imagine watching American football, but you could only follow one character, right, or only follow one player. And from his point of view, that it would completely change how you were immersed in that game. So maybe we need this type of, that's why this type of game can maybe move us into more of a mainstream esport. But I don't know. It's very complex. Like, it really is very complex.
Actually, I hadn't really thought about it. That's a really good point, because years ago, I used to watch videos of Thresh, right, and nailing everyone in Quake. And they were always like a shoulder cam view, and they were always post the game. So someone would cut it together so it would actually make sense, because he obviously has a battlefield awareness well beyond what most normal players have. So following what he does and why he does it from the point of view of his shoulder is really hard, even if you watch it several times. And it's not until one of the other guys gets the server log and cuts together something which shows the other players moving around, and then he's running around the outside to try and get them from behind, etc., that you actually understand why he's doing stuff. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I hadn't thought about that.
Because like that overview, that kind of top-down perspective is what high-level first-person shooter players see.
Yeah, they have that in their head. That's right.
Yeah. They've got the whole map figured out. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm a big fan of the way Call of Duty and Black Ops have done replays. You can save those and then switch between different player perspectives, do like slow-mo, and the tools are really sensible for like splicing it together and then uploading to YouTube. It's like
they understand the power of that. Those marketing videos produced by user-generated content. We talked about that in our business that we have is. That's super powerful because they're doing all the work, they're making it look glamorous from their point of view, and they're brilliant marketing pieces. Brilliant marketing.
Absolutely. So let's move on to what was the other thing we had here?
Well, you can tell us if we're going to be in the Minority Report and we're all going to be like Tom Cruise anytime soon.
We
Oh,
could
yeah.
talk Minority Report here with Elite Motion if you want. We've covered our ARMA a little bit. I don't know if you want to jump into that first, David.
Sure. We can talk a little bit about ARMA. They just recently released a 1 hour live hangout, live-ish hangout, where they showed some gameplay, and actually they showed quite a lot of the editor, which was awesome. As they were setting up some scenes. I watched through the whole thing. It's quite slow, but it's very cool. Like Simon, you've seen a fair bit of the game.
I'd
Steph,
love
you've
to
been
see it. I'll check it. I'll check it
yeah,
out.
no, you've been in the game. Imagine that. The straightest map that is the only available map right now is, what is it, like 22 square kilometers, and the map that's going live in less than 30 days is 270 square kilometers. It's
Nice.
absolutely enormous. But
So
obviously,
that's not happening on console then.
no. But obviously, they're introducing fighter jets as well now. So, and a ton of other vehicles, tanks. And the thing I'm most excited about is this volumetric fog, which I is supposed to be in there, but it's not in the beta as far as I can see. There's fog, and it is there, but it does. But the fog that they're introducing later, supposedly, is kind of layered, so that there can be fog in a valley, but not up on the hill, and it has like a natural gradient to it, so that you can use the fog tactically if you like. You can move
Yeah,
about.
that'd be the most. I mean, I've seen volumetric fog talked about in I mean, Unreal, when that first came out, had volumetric fog, and you just thought, yeah, it's nice. It gives a nice little effect. It'd be interesting to see, like you say, how players make strategic use of their fog. That would be really interesting. And then thermal goggles make all the difference. And yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously everything is played now slightly in the future, so the equipment that they're adding all these UAVs to the game. So they're gonna have the big, actually the current technology. They're gonna have the big ass drones that you can fly, and then they're gonna have these smaller, the ones that you can buy from our side. I think we're selling them, right?
Yeah.
These little hover things, but the high quality ones.
Yeah, the quad rotors.
Yeah.
Tilt and things like that.
Yeah. Those things you can have in the game. So I think they're adding a really crazy amount of good stuff.
Nice. So, like for the volumetric fog, are there smoke grenades already in game, or is that?
Oh yeah, full particle. Yeah, there's smoke grenades. There are kind of color marker grenades in the game. The smoke grenades I've never played around with in ARMA 3.
I did.
You did? How did they work out?
Being a stupid joker, like every time I found a green flare or a smoke grenade, I would just throw it and see what it did.
I'm highly visible.
Yeah, I'm not exactly. I'd throw it and stand around this glowing red thing. Oh yeah, that's
Totally.
Like that.
Totally. I don't blame you.
Why not? I mean, it's there. It's like a toy, isn't it?
Oh, I have some current fog footage here. Let me show you. Let me bring that. Let me share my screen.
You're not actually about to show us fog.
Yeah, I'm going to show you some fog.
I can't see anything.
Yeah.
Funny. Hilarious. All right. Okay, here we go. Can you see that?
No, I can't see anything.
All right, here we go.
All right. Yeah, that looks foggy.
Yeah. So that's the current foggy system, but then later you would be able. This would be having. First of all, it's supposed to be a lot thicker than this.
Sure.
So now that character should have disappeared, and then maybe on top of these trees or up the hill, the fog would start clearing.
Well, I like how it's the whole tree's moving, as if the whole tree's of sprite, which it isn't, obviously, but.
Yeah. And the editor's really fun to play around with. Like, it makes me I really want to run my own server now, because I want to create missions and I want to have people come in and run them. Basically, I want to be the dungeon master of ARMA 3.
Nice, nice. We should do a D&D mod for Armor 3.
Yeah,
I'm all
right.
about that.
Yeah, the game. I mean, it's the editing engine is really cool. Like you can create pretty complex scenarios, and you can set up missions really easily in the game.
But that's a mission editor, or that's actually you can modify the land.
No mission editor.
Okay, that's.
But you can add buildings and obviously enemy troops, and there's rudimentary like scripting in it as well. Yeah, I've been reading up on it a little bit. Like cool things you can do.
A little bit.
I love that stuff. I love that stuff. Being able to create some cool scenarios would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to make a mod, I would make this one that I used to play from the original Half-Life engine called Science and Industry. It was basically two teams, vaguely still in the Black Mesa Half-Life universe. But the idea was that both teams had bases, and each base had a group of scientists. And they were just like the Half-Life 1 scientists with a, you recognize the models as soon as you see them. They're super classic.
Right.
But basically, they're quietly working away at developing new technologies that your team uses. So like either like upgraded cyborg strength for that team of mercenaries, or the other team of mercenaries gets a new gun or something like that. Really like wacky off the wall kind of technology, like new mnemonic legs that let them jump way higher than they normally could. And either team would basically vote every time research was over on what the next thing would be. So it was very democratic in that way. But the whole goal would basically be to club your opponent's scientists over the head with a briefcase, fling them over your shoulder, and then bring them back to your HR department so that you could intake them. So you would have more scientists developing more stuff, and then they splice in the different game modes from there. It was such a good game. Like
that's the mod you would do.
We should do a whole show with our favorite mods.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be so much fun.
Well, Steph, you're really big into Quake and the older stuff, right? Like, were there any big mods back then?
Yeah, there was loads, but I mean, I was just laughing to myself because I was thinking my favorite mod actually wasn't a serious mod at all. It was a completely stupid mod called Catch the Chicken. So we would have like an office full of game developers, like really quite serious people that took their gaming really quite seriously. We were talking about it before the show, how seriously they took their gaming. But we'd put on this mod and everyone would start laughing. It was so much fun. You basically have this whole level. You run around as a totally hard-ass, badass space marine, except you have to run around with a chicken. Well, first you've got to find the chicken. You can hear it clucking around the level, and then you grab it. Someone grabs the chicken, then everyone's told, right, so-and-so's got the chicken. And you've got to find them, and he's got to run and put the chicken in a pen. And as he's running around, there's chickens dropping feathers and eggs and all this kind of stuff. So he's basically telling everyone where he is. And you're following after him, trying to rail him and all that stuff, and he's basically trying to put the chicken in the pen to get a point. It's so silly. But he's running, and he can't shoot, of course. He's running carrying this chicken. So all you can hear is and then rail guns going off, and people running after him with a machine gun and chain guns spinning up, and it's so silly. Anyway, so that was my favorite mod.
I feel like I played that.
And there was all the usual, King of the Hill, Captain Flag, and stuff. That was fun. The chicken one was the one we had the most fun.
Well, you could probably recreate that in the ARMA 3 engine. I mean, they have created, Wasteland.
I would do it just deliberately to annoy all the people that took it really seriously.
Yeah. Well, Wasteland is one of the mods, right? And so Daisy was a mod of ARMA 2. I don't know how much work is involved in getting a decent mod up and running on there, but I imagine it's considerable. Daisy was such a it was a complete change of ARMA 3 in so many ways. ARMA 2. But something like Wasteland, where you don't move it too far off what the original game is definitely doable. And there's another mod called Straightest Life, which is really interesting, where you kind of have to you spawn as either police force or just normal civilian on the island. It's actually called Island Life, and it was in ARMA 2 as well. And you start with no money, no belongings, nothing, and then you have to kind of do odd jobs so you can go and pick apples, or dive for rare turtles, but then you'll be breaking the law. You can steal stuff, but you'll be breaking the law. So then you'll be up to the police to police, the people breaking the law. And then you also have the rebels. So you have one part of the map is completely cut off, and it's like beyond this point there are no laws.
It's Lord of the Flies.
This is where the rebels are. So they built up this whole role-playing experience around the ARMA 3 engine, which was very successful, very popular in ARMA 2. I never really got into it. I played it around in it a little bit, but it wasn't the kind of game that I wanted to play. But interesting.
You could throw an XP bar on anything at this point, and people will go gaga over it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally. I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So,
And I'm actually drawn away from those types of games. To me, I'm drawn more to the game like DayZ or like Wasteland, where there isn't a persistent, your skill is your skill, and the more you play the game, the better you get as a player, not your character being upgraded by the time you play it.
Time played.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole big discussion especially in the iOS space, right? So.
yeah.
And well, stemming from World of Warcraft, of course, that's all a time-based XP, rather than an experience-based XP, which you carry with you throughout your own real life. You actually become better as a player versus put more time into the game. That's an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I remember in the earlier days in World of Warcraft PvP when the battlegrounds weren't splintered off so that you'd have cross-server play. It was like all the PvP battlegrounds were all on the same server. So people started getting reputations, right? And I remember there was this one guy called Long Arms, Night Elf Hunter, who was just absolutely horrible. Like, we would just gank the hell out of him time and again. But he had like the most ridiculous high-end epic gear you could imagine. He still couldn't kill a damn thing, but it was obvious that like he had a ton of time to play the game. He was just like some 50-year-old, like old guy, retiree. It was like no reflexes whatsoever, and he's just like, yeah, it's kind of fun, and doesn't take it too seriously, obviously, because he kept playing for ages and long enough to get that insanely good gear. But was just a horrible player. It didn't matter.
I think that's the way it's going to become, right? Because I'm going to retire at some point. You're going to retire at some point. There's people retiring right now that have a lot of free capital and a lot of time and actually like games. I mean, to me, that's almost heaven, that, and watching my kids grow up, obviously, because then I'm going to be able to play all these games that are stacked up behind me.
Yeah.
And read through all the guides that are down on the shelf and actually play all these things, because I don't have time to play anything anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not allowed to say that on this podcast stuff.
All right, let's wrap up talking about Leap Motion.
Go for it.
Yes. I was pretty excited about this as soon as I heard about it. For those who aren't familiar, it's basically like a little miniature Kinect for your desktop. So you plugged in over USB to your PC, and it's got like 3 infrared cameras with a pretty wide field of view, and it can detect hand movement at a very specific, precise location. So that opens up a lot of possibilities. They've got their own application network called Airspace. So we've already been seeing a lot of mobile games actually working their way over. There's Fruit Ninja, there's Cut the Rope, and there's a few others. And it's neat. You know, I find that when I first got my Kinect on the Xbox, there's a few games. There was like Dance Central, but even then, it's like I'm not a dancer, even in the comfort of my own home. Where it's like, yeah, no, I'm just having fun. No, not even kind of. Especially the part where they like take pictures of you and then offer to share it on Facebook. That's like, no, deal's off.
And then there's a whole Kinect experimental area that no one could ever find.
Yeah, exactly. But like the fun part of Kinect is just navigating the menus. It's just like swiping in the air, doing that. You know, talking to it, having it do stuff. It's cool. It feels very Minority Report, even if you gotta like yell at it and bark at it to actually do what you want to a couple times. But I'm finding a similar experience with the Leap so far, where I'm using it to try and scroll through web pages by doing that, and it's like detecting a single finger press instead of a 4-finger press, so it starts doing a text selection instead of like a mouse wheel movement. And it's like, you know what, screw it, the mouse is right here, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the thing. What I
That is
feel
the
like
thing, isn't it?
these things often come back to. Like, I mean, look at the really the debacle that was Xbox One E3 show, where they spent most of the show talking about how fantastic it now was that we could close our windows by doing this. We can move things around. Like, no one cares. Like,
No,
does anyone actually care? Does anyone want to sit in their sofa and wave their hands about? Or am I just going to sound like a really old fart now? And I'm going
No,
to
but I
look
think we're being
ridiculous.
practical. There's a practicality to dealing with things in a vertical plane, right? Which is, if I sit at my desk all day doing this, I mean, I'd look like a Russian shoplifter by, give me a couple of months. I'd have massive muscles and I'd be a huge stamina because actually moving things around like that, like they do, it's just tiring as all hell.
No, it absolutely is. That was like one of my first impressions, trying to scroll through a page for like a minute solid. I was like, damn, I'm just going to put my arm down now. It's not worth it.
Yeah, there's just a practical aspect. So if you think in a typical day, how many windows we open and close and resize and move about before actually doing any typing, it's a lot. Resizing windows. If you're doing that all the time, that'll be tiring.
Yeah. So from a gaming perspective, I haven't hooked it up to the Alienware yet. Right now, it's just on my laptop for work. But there is a game-centric app for remapping certain motions to keybinds. So I'm thinking just to start off, I would have a really light implementation. So maybe like a 4-finger down swipe for tossing a grenade. So it's like whoop. So I could get used to. It's not something that I'd have to do all the time, but I'd have to bring my hand up off the wash in order to do it. And
then you're gonna let go of everything.
And I don't know if I can do that. I sure as hell am not going to try and play a game exclusively with like 2 hands and like doing weird motions. And I've seen some of the tech demos from the guys who make these apps, and obviously they're going to be pretty good at it because they've like spent hours and hours at it. But I kind of liken it to a lot of the really wacky custom software keyboards we see on mobile, where there's like really bizarre ones that like make the whole keyboard disappear and have some weird system for like doing circular motions and shit. It's like the people who make it are really good at this, but most people are not going to be willing to invest that much time into it.
And also, I don't know if it's a rule in the Connect manual handbook or the publishing guide possibly, but I don't know why they don't allow you to hold a controller in one hand and still do Connect stuff. It's like every Connect game that you see doesn't have any controller input at all. It's purely through the Connect. It's sort of a very binary thing. Whereas it would be great on Connect, just like it would be using your Leap, right? To be able to use both an efficient button-based controller and some sort of gestural thing.
Yeah, like I could totally picture a game that uses mouse in one hand, Connect or Leap motion in the other. Like that would be a totally fine scheme for me. But it would depend very much on the game and what kind of interactions they're working with, right? Like I find like even just navigating around desktop mode.
No, you definitely play something like Incredible Machine, if you remember that game, right? Where you're placing things and twisting them, stretching them out, and then moving some. And that would be great. So you make your little model right on your screen, because then you feel like you're physically manipulating objects, possibly more precise than you could do with a mouse. Yeah. That would make sense. I guess, yeah, like you say, it depends on the game type, right? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the Leap motion's perfect for broad, fuzzy kind of manipulation. Like if they want to minimize a window or swipe over to another desktop, that kind of stuff is fine. But if you're trying to like click a link like that, and are you too close or you're more to the left, it's like way too much muscle control than I want.
Because I saw the video, like when they brought that video first out, it seemed to imply that it was super hyper accurate. Like you could move your finger around very precisely, and it would map it perfectly.
It is. It's extremely precise and very sensitive, and that's an issue, right? Like the onus is on me to have that muscle control and that precision.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're a magician. You need a spell book.
You need a little wand. Well, it does recognize that stuff too, right? Like in the demo, they had people, playing a Fruit Ninja with like a chopstick or something. It's like, okay, yeah, no, that works.
Yeah.
But
that was like that Sony thing, the Sony camera that came out with the book. I think we had it for Christmas, right? It was like a Harry Potter game, and it was a book, and you had the camera, the eye would be watching the book, and you could cast spells depending on what motions you made with your fingers. But you had to be reasonably precise. But obviously the shapes they had you transcribe or drawing out in space were very obvious, right? It would be either a triangle or a circle or like a wavy line with big. So the camera could very easily spot that type of movement.
Mm-hmm. I could definitely see myself playing Magicka, doing in air finger stuff rather than like keybinds. That'd be a ton of fun.
Magic? What? Magic or Magicka?
Magicka.
Oh yeah, where you inscribe the symbols. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. But then again, you come to the point where you're gonna move your characters too. I just don't know. I just don't see it as being anything that we're gonna be using that frequently. Like I see us using touch surfaces for sure. You know, we already are considerably, but for gaming, for hardcore, serious gaming, like platforms like the Surface for multiplayer gaming, for multiplayer RTS, well, that becomes like a big sandbox. But the whole being in front of your home computer for playing games, like I just don't see it.
I mean, I hope they find something. I think it's exciting, but it's difficult to imagine how they're going to merge, you know, completely gestural interaction with the efficiency. I mean, it is purely efficient, which is typically what players go for, like hardcore players. They're only interested in efficiency. Like, what is the most efficient way I can get my character to do something on screen?
Yeah. Well, David, you touched on touch environments there, and I think that's very much where Leap Motion's going to come into its own, right? Where you've got Windows 8, which is really obviously geared towards Windows tablets, and with a mouse and keyboard, it feels weird. It just feels off. You know, it's like I'm using two different environments here that don't mesh together. But with the Leap Motion, I find that it's like, okay, I can operate in a touch-like environment here without actually having a touchscreen monitor, right? I can still have a big boy PC, but have all that software that's been built for touch with big giant icons, and have it sensible in this environment. So I think once games start getting to that point, right? Like right now, touch-based games are built for devices with really limited resources. But once we start getting touch-based games that are built for really heavy-duty situations, you know, there's one coming out from Microsoft there called Project Spark, which is going to be a game design kind of engine. It's geared more towards like third-person adventure style, but they've got people doing all sorts of stuff with it. But it's built primarily for touch, so you're like painting landscape with your finger and stuff like that. Doing that with Leap Motion, I could see being huge because you could rotate the whole world like this and then zoom in and then start painting in the landscape. Like stuff like that would be cool for me.
So you can grab So what kind of movements are you limited to? You can actually grab things, or how does it work?
Well, I only played it a little bit. For like basically you would select a tool, so like a trench tool, so that it would like start building a kind of a crevasse into the landscape. So once you select that, you just like swipe down through the area, and then it would gradually lower. You go back and forth, and it'll start going deeper.
But in terms of the Leap Motion, like what does it understand? Is it effectively a touchscreen that's been projected out and it's closer to you and it's free in the air, or does it also recognize you bending?
Like, is there a volume there?
Oh yeah, like I don't even know if Spark is necessarily optimized for Leap Motion yet, but I'm saying that it could very easily because it's built for touchscreen tablets right now.
But what could Leap Motion do now? Like, does it understand volume between you and the monitor, or does it is it basically projecting a touchscreen closer to you, or is it actually doing more than a touchscreen can?
It's definitely doing more than a touchscreen can because, well, the way that they've got it set up right now is that there's kind of a ready zone, right? So, like, it won't actually register a click until I get, you know what I mean? So, let's say that's kind of like where the virtual touchscreen space is. All this space here before it is going to be kind of a ready hover area. So if I've got my finger here, it'll still recognize it on screen. It's like, okay, so this is where your finger is, and now you got two fingers. And then when I push it beyond that point, then it'll start registering touches. And depending on the kind of application you make, you can make several layers there, right, that do different things. It can recognize two hands. It can recognize multiple fingers. So if you want to go like this and spin a whole virtual landscape around, I'm positive that it would be able to.
That's cool.
That's interesting. But then you're totally going to want like an Iron Man style, like holographic.
Well, yeah.
Something.
That's the other thing, right? Like there's a lot of different, Oculus Rift, right? Like a lot of people are trying to get Leap Motion and Oculus Rift to work together so that you can be looking at something in a virtual space and it makes sense, right? Like it's gonna be
my hero's there now, right? Carmack's there.
Yeah, exactly.
But he'll make everything better. It'll be fine. I'm no worries at all now. I'm going to expect my Oculus Rift end of the year, and I know it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Just by default, yeah.
Just because he's there.
It's going to come out in 6 years, and actually, it's going to be
rubbish.
It's going to be a space shuttle at that stage.
You're such a cynic.
I bowled to my head.
But so Simon, should anyone pick this up?
Leap Motion?
Yeah.
You got to be prepared for early adopter issues, right? It's still very 1.0. It's gonna take some time for this to mature. It's gonna take some time for the applications to get there. The fact that a few big name ones have already vouched for it, like I said, cut the rope, stuff like that, gives it some immediate consumer appeal. But right now, it's very much kind of more something for tinkers, so something for people willing to put the time in to invest into learning and getting used to these kinds of foreign motions and stuff like that, rather than kind of like a super polished end user product, right? My main interest is in getting used to this now because I am fairly convinced that it's going to be the de facto standard in 5 or 6 years.
Oh wow, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I can see these easily being built into a keyboard just above the keys. So
yeah, that's what I thought when I saw, because the form factor is it's actually really neat looking, isn't it?
It's tiny, man. Like that is very small.
Yeah, that could work on a keyboard. It'd be like a workout.
Yeah.
Or if you could just lift your fingers a little bit and do certain movements that it will recognize. It's the same with the mouse. Like if I could just lift my finger from the mouse, and then just slide it to the side to go through pages instead of having to click, like very small, subtle movements that don't require me to move my hand too far, like that could work. I can see that really, really making it easier for us to work, or play.
Instead of making it harder and slower.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually hadn't considered putting it above my mouse. That'd make a lot more sense because if my hand's already there doing certain fine movements, just lifting it up and going over, okay. Because like right now I've got it off to the left side, thinking that I would use my mouse and it at the same time, but I probably wouldn't. It would be one or the other.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. I'm gonna try that out.
You got it thinking.
Just remember who gave you the idea.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Well, I think that's about it for tonight. We talked Dota, we talked Leap Motion, we talked ARMA 3, and I'm sure we'll talk about ARMA 3 some more later on when David discovers something new and magical. How much longer until it goes retail? It's really soon, right?
It's less than 30 days now. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I mean, one of the things that I want to do is start building a little group of players that would play together like once a week, because getting onto the service is such hit and miss often. Like
maybe someone can lend us a server.
Pardon?
Maybe someone can lend us a server.
Yeah, well, or we just find exactly, or we figure something out. Like if it means hosting our own or someone else hosting it, I don't care. But it's such hit and miss, and I would like to start a kind of invite only community as well as having a group of people that play there, regularly.
Noble goal. I am all for it, and I still gotta get the damn game. Even Steph has it now, so now I got no excuses. Right?
I'd love a private server so I can mess about flying, learning how to fly without risking everyone else's lives.
No, I'll show you how to do that stuff. We'll go into the editor.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I can do it locally.
That's really easy. That's what I've done. I've just gone into the editor, placed the helicopter, placed the playable play down, and then I'm off flying. Because I saw this one guy in a server, and he was flying. He was such a good pilot. Like he was.
No, all those proper guys, they actually switched to joysticks. They got joysticks next to them as well, flight sticks.
I know, but even with the fucking flight stick, like he was landing, precision landing, coming in from 10 feet off the ocean, surface of the ocean, going really fast, going up a cliff at high speed, just on the top of the cliff, barely touching it, landing, dropping people off, and then leaving again, like dropping off down the cliff.
You're probably
some airwolf shit. Pardon?
Like half the guys I talk to, or I talk kind of with on the servers, they're all ex-servicemen.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
not, a lot of them are ex-servicemen.
Yeah, there's a lot of military people on ARMA.
I'm sure a lot of them have put in a couple of hours into Battlefield 3 already too, right? I can't imagine the flying mechanics are too different.
They're not. Yeah, Battlefield 3 have similar mechanics. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely about the same difficulty to fly, I would say.
Yeah, flying is hard in BF3. I never got the hang of jets. I could do okay in choppers, but jets are hard.
Oh, really? I think jets are easier than choppers.
Oh no, I like my choppers.
Yeah.
All right, let's round this up so we can get some ARMA gameplay in.
All right, I'm Simon Sage. You can find me at twitter.com/Simon Sage. David, where can people find you?
Twitter.com/David Swede, and obviously on mostlycompetent.com.
Cool.
You can find me on any forum for Mobile Nations.
Cool. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.
See you guys later.